Hello everybody, welcome back for StarCraft 2 action. We have Trigger going up against Stats in the lower bracket of the Bellum Gens Elite. And the winner of this gets to fight for a top 8 spot in the lower bracket. Now, both of these players, we have seen them play PvP, so I went back, I checked what type of PvP they played this tournament. And Trigger, he likes to mix Blink Stalkers. He played against Showtime, great PvP series, best of 3. I cast it on this channel. I think I called it like Crypto Carnage. I couldn't find the video myself, like right away. I don't know. YouTube is hiding it or something. But that was a good best of 3. If you like watching that one. Was a very nice PvP. Very, very crazy games. Especially the second and the third game. Pretty funky. Let's say it that way. Trigger, though, makes Stalkers, sends them across the map, likes to go Twilight first, might go for like a Stargate into Twilight, but definitely wants to get that Blink. Stats, a little bit more skills-esque, but he's more tempted to throw down a Robo early, doesn't really open with Stargate. He only did it once with a proxy against DNS, and attempts to stay on the warp gate count, or a warp gate units, plus lots of Archon Immortal. It's kind of like what he likes to stick on a little longer than most Protosses. You'll see other Protosses switch into Disruptor production earlier than Stats does, or seems to do in this tournament at least. I looked at his games versus... Oh, Trigger. Hello there. Come into my mineral line. And Stats went for it. Lost the probe there. A friend of mine literally waits for that. Every time we play 2v2, he just selects all of his units and then hopes that a probe comes in and he just A-moves all of his workers. Works every time, unless it doesn't. Trigger, though, going for a proxy robo, game number 1, starting it off hot. And let's see what happens. Stats did manage to defend a proxy robo versus DNS. So let's see if he manages to do it again. He seems to be waiting to put down a tech structure, and if it is a robo of his own, which does seem to be Stats' MO, that would be very nice, but it could be Twilight Console. It's a robo. Okay. Trigger, though, has a way earlier robo. Made 2 adepts, because those are a little faster going across the map. And Stats is making his Stalkers and sending them across the map. Because that's the one thing I forgot to mention. Stats cracked DNS open with some early aggression. I think 2 times in a row. One time he even built buildings onto the natural location of DNS and forced DNS to expand to a third base location. Stats! Oh, loses a Stalker there. Goes for the recall, and these Adepts are getting some juicy prober kills. 5 probes have died, and the Adept even gets out. And the first Immortal already on their way, but there is no natural. So Trigger, how do you approach that? Because usually you get to bust a natural if your opponent doesn't scout. The fact that you doesn't scout that you're proxy roboing, but I guess Stats did see the lack of natural, so it doesn't feel safe getting the natural himself. Might get a couple sentries, go for the scout, and then maybe go for a little later expansion. 3 Stalkers in a War Prism. Now, we learned that doesn't one-shot probes. And Trigger just walks up into the base of Stats here. 1 force field does go down, but there's a War Prism here, making sure that this Immortal can just get into range. 1 Stalker already going down, but the Stalker reinforcements, the cavalry, comes in from the back. 1 Stalker does not get saved by this War Prism. Now we do see a little bit of pickup micro from Stats coming out. Trigger has very low HP. Stalkers. The War Prism does go down. Stats clicks it down here, and that seemed to be a pretty easy hold for Stats. 1 War Prism and Immortal go down for 4 Stalkers, 7 probes, and a sentry. Now, if Stats finds this robo, Trigger's not going to be happy. And he does fly into it. He has 4 Stalkers here, but oh my god, he flies into the opposing Stalkers. See some nice drop pickup micro, and now we have 4 Stalkers versus 3. These Stalkers, oh, Nice. Trigger picks it up. Keeps that one stalker alive. I think it's literally... Oh, no, it's 3 HP. But still. And there is an immortal in this War Prism. Oh, stats. It's getting quite some value out of these stalkers. Delaying this War Prism as well. Sees that there's more immortals coming. He knows there's a second wave coming out of Trigger. There is no natural expansion. These stalkers even get away. But do we have a recall? Yes, there is one available. But is Stats gonna go for it? Is he gonna send it? Oh, finds a stalker, kills it. Does he go for a recall? He does go for the recall, but the weakest stalker gets left behind, gets killed. But one stalker and a bunch of time. Remember that, 2 immortals on each side. No natural expansion just yet, but Trigger's now looking to expand. Probably just contain Stats here on one base. What is Stats doing behind this? He only has... Oh, he has 3 gates, actually. 2 immortals versus 2 immortals. Stats comes down. Can't be contained if you're already out of your base. And these immortals, with their shotgun hands, take down these stalkers super fast. Now Trigger has to mount a defense at home. Slight army lead for Stats, and he can also start taking down this Robo and really get an advantage in the Robo count, like the amount of Robo units that you have. Takes down the pylon, lets the Robo sit there. I'll deal with that later. I am here to deny your natural, Mr. Trigger. You have triggered my trap card. And ooh, 1 sentry already going down there. Counter force fields. Kind of annoying for Trigger to hold his ramp here. This wall working against him right now. And this natural... I mean, Stat's not even trying to take it down. He's just trying to kill Trigger right now. Shades on in with the Adepts. Lifts up the Immortals with the War Prism and is just trying to dive on top of the Stalkers. The probes come up the line, but the Stalkers aren't even using the cover. In the meanwhile, Trigger is in the main base of Stats with his Immortals. We see all of those probes going down. Oh my god. It's some type of a base race now. Are you going to target down the core? No, he targets down the pylons, making sure that there's no more production for Trigger. He literally has 2 gateways, and he has a Stargate of all things. Now goes for a recall, gets 2 of his Immortals back. And Stats, he's standing and fighting, gets a couple probe kills in return. Stats only 2 probes. He gets a 13 of Trigger, but he's targeting down the Nexus. If he can click down the Nexus, Trigger does have a Nexus at the natural, because Stats did not kill that, but this could kind of put Stats back in the game by just killing all the Nexi off Trigger. The Adept Shade back. All the probes come off the line. There is no force fields for Stats, so he can't keep Trigger in his main. The War Prism doing the Mikra, keeping these Immortals alive. There is a Stalker Killer in the Void Ray, and this Void Ray is clicking down the War Prism, starts overcharging, doesn't do extra damage to the War Prism, but it does do extra damage to the Stalker. And Stats does get a force field down. Is he going to click down the Nexus? I don't know. He keeps targeting the Nexus and then other units. The Nexus almost dead. Now he clicks on the Nexus again. The Nexus dies. So Trigger does die. He does not have money to make another Nexus. He can make another pylon and maybe warp in like a sentry and a... Or 1 Stalker, man? I don't know. Like a sentry and a Zealot. Oh no. Barely not. He can make a sentry. He can pick an Adept, a Sentry, or a Zealot. That's all he can make. He can... No, he can't even afford a Phoenix. But he does have 2 Immortals and a Void Ray. We do have 1 battery ready for Stats here. Stats runs back. He has 1 Immortal and 3 Stalkers. He also has a little bit of income again. 7 probes right now. He's still making more. Very surprising. Like, he makes more... Oh my god, he doesn't have any production anymore. Pulls off all of the probes. Tries to micro back. We get the nuclear battery, but the fight is happening away from the nuclear battery. The probes still doing a little bit of meat shielding action. We have this 1 Stalker remaining. The Void Ray is dead. 1 Immortal in a War Prism versus Immortal and a Stalker near a battery. I think Stats has it. This has to be GG. Where's the probe? Did he send it across the map? He probably sent it across the map. It's over here to make a gas, just in case. Oh, Trigger, he chose an Adept because it doesn't take any bonus damage from these units. Trigger tries to micro his heart out, but versus a hit scan unit like the Immortal, you can't micro that much. You need to be able to take down the Stalker, but if the Immortal and the Stalker stay together, I don't think Trigger's gonna manage to force a draw here, because this is all he has. Like, if you're lucky, you can kill the Stalker, and then I think you can pick up and drop slightly out of range of the Immortal, especially if the turret has to, like, turn to hit. Oh my god, the Immortal! What? No! Stats! He lost the... I don't even know how you lose that Immortal! He lost the Immortal. He only has a Stalker. He can warp in a unit. He doesn't, though. He could even start... Oh, he can almost start an Immortal again. Oh, he warps in the Stalker. That might have been the plan. Make another Immortal, but now he has a Stalker. Oh my god. Poor Stat... Oh! Oh my god! That Immortal! It is like 1 HP! Stalker isn't hit scan, though. You have no hit scan. I guess your Sentry is a hit scan unit. Make a Sentry. 1 Sentry against the world. No, he makes another Stalker. I guess you can click the War Prism with it. Oh my god, this Immortal. 5 HP, little bit of shield, 20 kills. And, oh my god, this battery has no juice. We have a Super Battery again, no? We have it. Super Battery is... Oh no, this Immortal, it died. Trigger is dead. And Stats takes game number 1. Dude, PvP is a crazy matchup. What the hell? What a start to a best of 5. And for game number 2, we load up into Site Delta Stats, going for the low ground pylon, and Site Delta, one of the only maps in PvP, because of this ramp where we see 1 gate expands, and of course the Shield of Ire would be one to do that. And it's a risk you can take, honestly. You're up 1-0 in a best of 5? Max Packs has been showing that 1 gate expand is pretty juicy. Although, from what I've heard, is that it often ends up into Phoenix Wars. So let's see if that comes to pass. Here in game number 2, Trigger. I mean, that game 1 was this close. After you killed the Immortal from Stats, I felt like you had it. And then the Immortal died. Which I guess it died to probe attacks because Stalkers attack pretty slow. So if you just keep picking up the Immortal... But you can make mistakes. That's super high pressure. And this is the map where Stats versus DNS. Stats made a bunch of buildings on the Nexus location, forced DNS to expand to his 3rd base. And it got really wacky from there. Now, both players did go for that 1 gate expander, making a Zealot on both sides. Stats cancels the Zealot and throws down the Nexus. And Trigger, though, hasn't yet to throw down that Nexus. Chose to go for a little earlier second gas. Has a core as well. Is he gonna finish this Zealot? Goes for the Stargate. Okay. Has a Zealot now. And he almost has the money for a Nexus. The Zealot tries to kill this pylon now as Stats as a way earlier expansion, but is behind in the tech. Stats does know what's going on, though. He's still around. Is he going to throw down a core? He doesn't have the money for it. Goes for another pylon. And now gets out with his probe before the Stalker even finishes up. Nicely timed out, but Trigger... Is he going to cancel this? No, he's not going to cancel it. He's just going to wait a couple seconds for the gas to accumulate. Well, he almost has the gas right away. Goes for an Oracle, gets Chrono Boosted out. Trigger starts his Nexus, but Stats almost finishes his Nexus already. Gets a second Gateway. So, very imbalanced game already, or at least asymmetric in the sense that both players have a different setup right now, which is how I enjoy my mirror matches the most. When they deviate. when they're not just spamming the same stuff and try to like get slightly better trades. I don't know if you guys remember, or I guess it still happens, but if you play TVT and you have a Reaper versus Reaper, it is coded in a way that I think the unit that spawned first on the map wins that interaction. So if they like meet each other and start attacking at the same moment, if it's a hit scan unit, the one that was built earlier, like finished earlier, doesn't really matter, I suppose. Unless it's a unit that has a different building time. Some Oracle, dude, the shield battery is paying off here. But the unit that was finished the first or built the first, I think wins. So they shoot at the same time and then one of them just shoots like one subtick faster or one frame, I don't know. But if it's a Stalker versus Stalker, both die because they have projectiles, so both projectiles will be in the air. And so it will be a tie. But it's a bit different with like Marines and Reapers, Immortals, I think Sentries. You know, those hit scan type units where there is no projectile. Same with Siege Tanks. Trigger going for the blink. And Stats also going for the blink, but also throws down a robotics facility. Now we have this one Oracle from Trigger. And he decides not to go back for a second Oracle. Interesting. Because I feel like a second Oracle is really good, because then you can start one-shotting these probes. But I guess he saw the Twilight, he saw the Stalker count, he's like, okay, this guy is okay with building a bunch of Stalkers. But even then, like, Stasis wards are good. As soon as Stats moves out, you can kill a bunch of probes. Maybe he goes back for second Oracle later, but maybe then it's not worth it anymore. Maybe with the new patch, you can see that, actually. Because then you can give the Oracle full energy when it spawns. So you can make it later, give it full energy from the Nexus, and then just send it out. Go kill some probes with your mentor buddy. 10 Stalkers against 9. Very riveting gameplay. Oh, a couple Stalkers from Stats get caught out on the map here. Blink for Stats is going to finish a little earlier. I mean, he probably doesn't mind revealing it at some point. But there's a lot more Stalkers at the third base here. Looking at Stats' third. Trigger clicks down the shield battery. Very nice. Ooh, nice blink back so far. We saw a lot of shots from Stats' Stalkers just evaporate into the void, which is a cool thing about Stalkers. If there's a projectile heading towards the Stalker and you blink it away, it will just hit the ground and do nothing. Trigger. It's a little cheeky pylon out there. Has a third base completed himself. Stats. Has an earlier natural, but now a later third. Not by a whole lot, but still worth mentioning. Stats has a bigger army and slightly lower probe count. So Trigger really been chrono boosting those probes out, taking a little backseat behind that Oracle harassing. We see +1 starting up on both sides, charge starting up on both sides, and a bunch of gateways going down for Trigger here. He has 3 on the map, 5 building, and Stats also starts building some gateways here. So we're going to look at the Immortal count. We have 2 Immortals for Stats here. And no Robo units yet for Trigger. He is starting up his Robo right now. Both players just kind of sitting back, trying to protect their field center. The Zealot goes out for an adventure, making sure Trigger has nice spotters, right? Like, has his pylon, has the Zealot. No army is going to walk into his third without him knowing. I mean, maybe if you, like, walk up this way. But, like, going through the middle for a sneak attack is just something that doesn't happen that much, I feel like. If you want to be sneaky, the middle of the map is kind of, I mean, hidden in plain sight, you know? Fourth base is going down on both sides. We see Templar Archives going down for Stats. Let's see if that is also down for Trigger. No, it's not, so Stats going to start up getting some Archons a little earlier. And Trigger already building up a Zealot force. 13 Zealots on the map, more being warped in. And let's see if we see some zombie run-bys. Sorry if the fights are going to be a little cluttered. Blue versus red, or what is it? Blue versus green, sorry. I'm not colorblind, but sometimes a little overwhelmed. But you see these green health bars with blue shields, with green units, with like gray, bluish accents, especially these stalkers. I don't know, especially the zealots. They just... I can't see what's happening when they run into each other. Players, pretty similar supply. And we see one Archon here for stats to deal with the zealots of Trigger. Trigger has more zealots, but as long as you have enough zealots, you can deal with your opponent's zealots. And stats, of course, has a slight defender's advantage here with the shield battery. The War Prism gets targeted down by stats. Nice job. This Archon still alive, staying alive. And Trigger also loses his one immortal and has to tuck tail and run back to his own 4th base. Has managed to probe it up, where stats still working on that. Probe count relatively even. Let's see. This Oracle's still on the map. Oh, these immortals are like, get off my lawn. Goddamn green stalkers. Stats' army is very suited to deal with pure gateway units, which is what mostly Trigger is showing to us right now. Trigger only one Robo, does not have a Templar Archives of his own, and also does not seem to be progressing towards any other tech. Only has 4 gases, whereas stats, well, also has 4, I guess. So, I'm still getting used to it. Oh, 3 gases even for Trigger. I'm still getting used to the fact that these Protosses just refuse to get gas. They just make the basic unit an A move, which, honestly, is kind of cool. +2 for Trigger is online, but stats will have his +2 when the main fight commences. One more second. A couple shots did go out from Trigger's army, so did a little bit more damage. But now +2 is finished up. Slightly bigger army here for Trigger. Neither player has a run-by set up, but stats walks into the 3rd base. You don't just walk into Mordor, but you do just walk into Trigger's 3rd base, apparently. And stats has a pretty decent concave here. Lots of zealots are running in, though. Get on top of the Immortals. The Immortals are targeting other zealots, and these Immortals from Trigger are doing work. No shield batteries here. Already got taken down by stats. We have one more Immortal remaining, but also one Immortal from Trigger. And these Archons, they are doing so much splash damage. Oh my god, there's one Immortal in the back, actually. Trigger tries to pull the probes as well, but probes into Zealots and Archons. Not the craziest combination. That's what we call a meat grinder. The last Immortal for Trigger goes down, and Trigger tries to hold on here with the Stalkers, but it seems like stats has broken the 3rd base location of Trigger. One Immortal and Archon remaining. Now even warps in another Archon. And stats not relenting here. The Trigger, he's holding on. But I don't know if to any avail. War Prism does get sniped. That's a nice one by Trigger. But the supplies are not lying. Look at D. These 4 Stalkers are running away. No! No! They find one Immortal and they're like, okay, never mind. Recall comes out. Maybe one Stalker dies. Yep, one Stalker dies. And Trigger gets 2 Stalkers back from that escapade on the right side of the map. These Zealots don't even get into a base. Oh my god, a cannon and a shield battery on both bases. So just a small Zealot run-by is just not going to cut it anymore. You have to send in like 15 of those boys. Uncontested, preferably. But look at the supply. Trigger's just behind. Runs in with all of his Zealots. Gets met by more Zealots than he can handle. More Immortals than he has. And an equal amount of Archons. More Stalkers as well. The Archons get targeted down, and Trigger is forced to GG out. And stats, just like that, goes up 2-0 in this best of 5. And for game number 3, we load up into a Goldenaura. And stats up 2-0 versus Trigger. We have to see Trigger pull some rabbit out of the hat here. And I feel like he had a pretty good chance in both games. Like, I mean, game number 1 is one of the games of all time. That was crazy. And he could have won that game, or at least gotten a tie. Got a little unlucky. And then game 2, I feel like he was off to a good start. But stats It's had nice army movement. Got into the third base. And Trigger, slightly out of position. Lost his shield battery there. Just lost all the defender's advantage you really have in PvP. Except for, I guess, the Robo rally. But he was already behind in Robo units. Stats just needs to keep doing what he's doing. And what you need to keep doing is, of course, well, watching my videos if you like StarCraft, but also make sure that you are subscribed to the channel. I would really appreciate it. You can also like the video if you feel so inclined. Trying to up that sub count a little bit, so I would like to keep the growth going. I've done like more than 200 videos on almost exclusively StarCraft 2, so feeling pretty confident in the product. And now I just want to share it with more people, see where it goes. And of course the dream, going to an event at some point as a talent. Is what the practice is for in the end. Trigger goes for the double Stalker into double Sentry. And on the other side of the map, we see Stats going for the double Stalker after Stalker Sentry. So Stats going for like the most macro-oriented build, I feel like. Stalker Sentry. Ooh, this proxy pylon from Trigger. Stats is not... Ooh, pylon has more vision range. Trigger sees the probe, but the probe does not see the pylon. Robo's already going down for Trigger, halfway done here. Very similar setup of what Stats had against DNS. Trigger has an early Robo and could go for Proxy Stargate, giving him a cookie of his own dough, as we say in Dutch. It's roughly translated, or literally translated. It's a taste of his own medicine, I think, in English. But in Dutch we say a cookie of your own dough. And Stats, surprisingly almost, goes for a Twilight console first, but not after just going for a solid macro opener, expanding. He is long distance mining with the probes. Interesting. 4 sentries for Trigger. What the hell? 4 versus 3 on the side of Stats, dude. Sentries really had their glow up with the recent patches, especially for PvP. Now we already have one Immortal. The second one is being produced here for Trigger, not going back for any like War Prism or Observer. No. Just going for a second Robo. Like this is just almost looking like a Soul Train. All you need is like 5 more gateways. And the Adept squad does get recalled out, but I think one of them did not make it back. Killed in transit. Looking like a Star Trek episode here. What happens when you die mid... what's it called? Transporter? Yeah, if you use the transporter room and you die halfway during your transport. Or the other question is, if you get completely deconstructed and then reconstructed again, is that still you? You have that one movie, what's it called? The Wizard movie. I'm blanking on the name, but basically there's this wizard movie where... Prestige, I think it's called. The Prestige. That one is funny. That like every time he does like a trick, he basically clones himself or something, and then he kills his clone every time. It's so weird. It's a little weird. But definitely a fun movie if you are looking to watch a movie tonight. Or in the afternoon. The Prestige. Trigger. It's putting on some pressure here on Stats, but Stats has a concave set up for him. It's like, I'm not afraid. Come into my natural. I have 2 shield batteries. And a Robo pumping out my first Immortal. Now, Forge is also coming up. We see Glaives coming out for Trigger. And we have Blink for Stats. And now we also have Glaives for Stats. Dude, every time I see this upgrade in PvP, I'm a little like, is that good? Is that good? Is that good? and I think it's okay. I think it's pretty okay. Like, it gives you a little bit more oomph against opposing zealots. And you also get the shades, which shades can really mess with your opponent if they are relying on force fields. Plus, if you're like fighting over here and you send 2 shaded adepts or 4 into their main, you just let them finish, they have to deal with that. Or even if you don't finish them, they still have to deal with it. Because if they finish, they will kill all of your probes in an instant. Resonating Glaive's almost done here for Trigger. Both players going for a third base. Trigger's third base is slightly earlier here. And no +1 for Trigger this game. How many Robo units does he have? He has 5 immortals. What the hell? He has 5 immortals. What the hell? 5 immortals versus 1. He's going for that Adept Immortal bust. That's kind of a mid-game timing that only really shows itself in PvP. And every time I see it, I'm like, is this good? But usually it looks good. I think it wins more than it loses. Oh my god, look at these shades. You have to react. Nice building placement by Stats, making sure that these adepts can't get into the main. But look at that. You have to keep responding. You have to... Oh, look at that. These stalkers are kind of out of position. They are fighting those adepts, though. So I guess they are in position. Even some counter adepts from Stats, because he now also has resonating glaives, giving them that attack speed. And the 2 immortals versus the 5 of Trigger. Stats locks his main base. Nobody gets in, nobody gets out, except with a War Prism. No War Prism for Stats, though. But there is one for Trigger. And these adepts shading on into the natural. Both players just pumping out more units. Stats even starts +2. He's very confident. He's like, I'm not dying here. Goes into a choke point, but Trigger not ready with a nice concave. So seems to be a decent trade here for Stats. All of the sentries, except for 1 from Trigger, do get killed in that interaction. And wow, these adepts were clicked into the main base, but... Oh, Stats kills that shield battery to get his probes out into the third base. Oh, so the mining of Trigger is a little better here because his probes were freely transferred to the third base. And the immortal count for Trigger so high here. Still has the 5 immortals, and that seems to be doing a lot of damage, even against adepts, where sure, that's not bonus damage, but that's still a lot of damage. 6 immortals versus 2. And Stats even has a decent amount of stalkers in there. Once the immortals start hitting stalkers, it's just all ogre. Also, stalkers, I think per inch, like per... I'm European, I don't use inches. But like per square meter, per like... Yeah, square? You get more DPS out of the adepts, I think. Because stalkers are pretty fat, and they attack pretty slowly. So maybe that's also something... Like the adepts just kind of like can all attack at once because they shade on top of you. Whereas stalkers can kind of get stuck, or if they are in front attacking, something else can be stuck behind it, or you can only have so many stalkers attacking the same thing. I don't know. I would really like a really good Protoss player to talk to me about these adept compositions at some point. Now Trigger using all of this map control to start a 4th base. There is a War Prism going across the map for Stats. Now if this was Skillus, this one would already have been inside of the base of Trigger twice. But this is Stats. Okay, gets the adepts at the 4th base. Trigger doesn't see it just yet. And the shades might start going into the natural here. The army moves towards the other side. So let's see if Trigger sees these adepts shading. And yes, he does. Adepts go into the natural. But there's enough adepts there to deal with it. Now the main armies butt heads here. And wow, Trigger doesn't actually have any shield batteries in position. But he does have 6 goddamn immortals. And they start targeting down the immortals of Stats. One of them got targeted down right away. The Blinkstalkers blink in to their doom. Look at that. This is a million immortals. We see... Oh my god, no. Stats. His Stalkers move commanded into the immortals. Probably used their blink already. Nuclear battery was committed there by Trigger, but still has 5 immortals remaining. He's making one disruptor as well, and Stats behind this is also looking to build some disruptors. He's also building back up his probe count, ostensibly behind a couple probes there. Stats forces a warp in here in the main base, actually goes for a warp in himself, whereas the rest of the army not going to do too much. These adepts actually win out versus the adepts of Trigger, and a couple probes do go down here. Stats probably going to go for a recall. No, he's not. Hold position these adepts right now, sir, and you can kill a couple probes. Oh, the disruptors come out. Oh, they get 3 adepts. That is gnarly. Dude, I feel like these adepts could have killed a lot of probes if they were hold positioned and spread out a little bit. Stats gets position on the 4th base of Trigger. He finds a 4th base. He's like, what? You have a 4th base? Well, you saw that already, but I think he's still a little angry that it was the case. This one adept from Stats, dude. He's like, help! Get me out! Oh, Stats, dude, he's walking around all of Trigger spaces. He does not care about how big that black gate is. He will walk into Mordor, no questions asked. This sentry might die to this adept. Nope, gets out. This one adept, dude, gets a bunch of probe kills. Where are the other ones? Oh, they are in here at the 3rd. More probes going down. Dude, what a chaotic game. Stats is pulling out the moves, though. He's trying to make the moves. His army count is very low, but he has caught up in the worker count. He has +2 versus 1, and he has disruptors of his own. He has 2 already, and there is 2 in the army of Trigger. I think if Stats gets these disruptors in front and throws balls and then, you know, starts retreating, he can delay this fight long enough to stay alive. Oh, first Disruptor Nova goes out from Trigger. Was slightly earlier, and then you kill the opposing Disruptor. That's kind of why I wanted those to have, or to be out in front ASAP. The 4th base, though, just gets overrun. That army count of Trigger is now almost doubling the army of Stats. And Stats does have the 3 Disruptor, the comeback unit. But Trigger's just on the ball, on the money, and no money shots in his face today. Not gonna get taken down by Stats here. A couple more adepts sneak on into the worker line of Trigger. Oh, these... Oh, no. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. No way. 10 kills, 8 kills. These dirty disruptors killed, like, half of those stalkers. Oh, my God. The stalkers do blink in. Don't even get the last shot off. And now Stats is just being overrun by his opponent. Oh, nice shot. Nice hit with the disruptors, but Stats has to retreat here. Now, I don't know if he can make it work. Another disruptor gets taken down. No Warpism to save the expensive units, and Stats is forced to GG out Trigger. Puts one on the board, and we go into a 4th game. And for the 4th game in this best of 5, this PvP between Trigger and Stats, we load up into Ghost River, the map where Hurston has Proxy Robo twice in a row. Just letting you know. It might just be a good Proxy Robo map. Trigger already did it once in this series. Did it on an Alcyone. Didn't look too impressive. Stats has held 2 Proxy Robos this tournament. So let's see what happens. This game, Trigger finally getting a little bit of wind in his sails. Won a game fairly convincingly. I mean, more immortal, more better, apparently. And let's see if he can slingshot this series back into his favor and bring this series to a 2-2. But what he's going to gamble all of his chips on, or gamble, bet, is yet to be seen. Stats. Where is your second gateway, Mr. Stutz? He's not doing it. He refuses. Whereas Trigger is going for that double gate. Trigger has a probe out on the map, puts down a pylon in the position where your opponent probably doesn't scout. So is this going to be a Proxy Robo? It's a pretty nice distance to walk, actually. I like this position for a Proxy Robo. Could also be a Proxy Stargate. Could be, like, Twilight Council DT Shrine. But that seems to be the least likely outcome here. Let's see what Trigger does. There's 100 gas, so it's probably a robo. It is a proxy robo. No, did he scout? No, he did not scout. We see an extra gateway going down for stats. He's like, well, I haven't found your second pylon yet. He has a zealot walking around even looking for it, dude. Stats. He's sniffing this out. He puts down a second gateway. He puts down a robo. And as Trigger, you are scouting it. You see the robo. This happened in game number 1 as well. So Trigger, what is the adaptation here? Because in game number 1, Stats just walked down and pushed you out of his natural right away. Ooh, this probe is not getting away. Nice block there by Stats. This zealot's still running around trying to find this proxy robo. But, of course, has not found it. An Immortal is being chrono boosted out again. And rallied into the main base here. Stats' robo just finishing up. 2 gates for Stats. 2 gates for Trigger. Third one underway. And these adepts are shading up. Ooh, I think they could have finished that shade, killed the probe, and then there isn't really anything to do with this. Maybe he gets a shot on the sentry. I think sentry does outrange the adept. But, I don't know. I wouldn't have hated him finishing the shade. Killing that one probe for free. Where's that zealot, dude? Where is it? It's over there. He is making the walk all the way to Mordor. Like, he went all the way around, making sure that the big eye of Stats is not watching. And Trigger actually shades on into the main base of Stats here. Can Trigger get a couple pro kills here? Gets 2. There's an Immortal out. And now we do have the Warp Prism for vision, so maybe Trigger can actually get a little bit of damage done, punish this high ground wall, and kill the Cyber Core. That will be very annoying for Stats. He will have to be rebuilding that. He already started a new one. Oh my god, Trigger actually moves on up to fight. Force fields from both sides, kind of preventing either player from really maneuvering around here. Second Immortal is coming out here for Trigger, and he's trying to kill this gateway. Stats not really, like, producing anything. I guess you can make zealots, but they're just so bad right now. You'd rather make more shield batteries. And we see a Stargate going down here for Trigger. Has not built. I don't know what happened there. Did the zealot find it? Oh, the zealot found it. Oh. Well, that's unfortunate for the zealot. An Immortal was there. And just, you know, shotgun hands and all. Little Immortal drop coming out here of Stats. But Trigger, he's cognizant of the fact that, ooh, that building might be a little vulnerable to some harassment out of my opponent here. Another Immortal comes out here for Trigger. Now it's 2 Immortals versus 2 Immortals. Stats takes the trade, but also walks down his ramp, claims his natural. And, oh no, the Warp Prism? I was like, oh, I've seen Warp Prisms die here, and it feels bad, because you lose the game instantly. Stargate going down for Stats as well. And the first Phoenix is coming out for Trigger. Oh my, oh my. This base looks crazy. Trigger, dude, neither player has a natural. The Ghost River is just not a map where you make a natural base in PvP. That much is clear. This Warp Prism moving out. 4 gateways for Stats. Goes for a recall as well. We might see this pylon killed. Yes, we do. This Warp Prism with Immortals got recalled back. It's now in a defensive position. These warp gates still online, but there is no supply for Stats. He's a little supply block because of that pylon being killed. Trigger is moving across the map. He means business. Not repowering this robo. Oh, that's what Stats did. He just went to this pylon and unpowered it. So that's an eye for an eye, pylon for a pylon. Oh, Trigger walks in. The first Immortal. This Immortal hasn't shot his shot yet. Does not get a date out of this encounter. And Stats' army supply is slightly lower, but that positioning was great. Like, he just force-fielded half of Trigger's army out, whereas his whole army was just killing those, like, 4 units at the top there. So very nice engagement from Stats. And the shield. Is it working? Oh, he kills this pylon. Nice lift there by the Phoenix. But the recall actually saves the Immortal. The pylon, though, does go down. And now I think Stats has one more Immortal. And both players are making Phoenix. The War Prism gets found. And the recall's already been used. Just send it over there. Keep the Phoenixes away from you. The Phoenix fly into the army of Stats. They do take down the War Prism of the opponent. But how many Phoenix do we have on either side? 3 Phoenix versus 3 Phoenix. More being created. And both players still refuse to expand. 8 minutes into the game. No natural bases. These Phoenix are going to be really strong at lifting the opponent's Immortals, of course. But if you start lifting your opponent's Immortals, that means your opponent's Phoenix will kill your Phoenix. And then they do the same thing back to you, but then you don't have any Phoenix anymore. So using lift first is for suckers. Oh no, Trigger! The classic PvP, Phoenix versus Phoenix. Your opponent has one more Phoenix, gets on top of your Phoenixes, and now you just kind of boned. You have less Phoenix. How are you ever defending against your opponent's Phoenix without sufficient Phoenix? 4 Phoenix in the air for Stats, only 2 for Trigger. More Phoenix coming out for Stats. And the long distance mining is commencing. One probe goes down. Stats goes for a natural. Trigger. Is he really going to try and finish this? Or is he just going to try an A move? I feel like there's nothing much he can do here. Like, what can you do, really? I guess Chrono Boost probes is something you could do. Just have more probes as soon as your natural finishes up. You have like 24 out of 24 probes. Oh my god, that's a lot of Phoenix. 6 Phoenix versus the 2. And Trigger just doesn't have that much anti-air. Oh, 2 Adepts do get into the main base, but that's a lot of Adepts for Stats as well. Couple probes go down. But Trigger still behind in the worker count, behind in the army count, and behind in the Phoenix count. It's going from bad to worse. Like, he does not have an advantage right now. Nothing that can help him. Oh, 7 Phoenix versus 2. Guardian Shield goes down, and the Phoenix start a genocide of the probes. They actually find a unit there, but now the probes, look at the probes go down. Phoenix do bonus damage versus light units, and probes are definitely light units. So, up, 8 probes go down, as if nothing happened. 1 Phoenix went down for that, and you buy so much time for yourself. Ooh, 2 Phoenixes, one of them misrallied Stats. Sleeping behind the wheel a little bit there. Maybe already uncorked the champagne after killing that many probes, putting Trigger back into the Stone Age. And his economy is going back to the third world, because he's losing even more probes. 4 more go down, and it's just keeping like Trigger at home. Trigger's literally hoping Stats walks up this ramp and makes a huge mistake. But it's Stats. He's at home. He's chilling. He's defensive. And, I mean, there's just no way. Trigger has a decent army. It's the same size as Stats, maybe. But I think you need like 2 cannons plus Stalker just to defend against all of the opponent's Phoenixes, and then take a super fast third, and maybe like just go all mineral. That's a Zerg response right there. We just my opponent's amassing Phoenixes. I make an extra base. I make more drones, and I make Queens and Spores, and I just make more drones. I'm gonna lose drones, so I need to overmake drones. And then Phoenix without energy don't do anything. Oh my god, a lot of Adepts. Oh my god, Trigger sends the armada of Adepts into the main base of Stats. Lots of force fields. Stats going for glaives as well. Both of these players do not have glaives as of yet. Trigger pulls back with his adepts. But Stats now shoots ahead in the army supply, has been mining a lot more than his opponent. The Phoenix has come across the map, so even without the Phoenixes, Trigger does not dare to attack into this base, and I think it's slowly dawning on him as well now that he is boned. He's completely boned. There is no way, unless Stats, like, move commands into your army, I think. He is down here, though, Trigger. But Stats responds right away. Doesn't walk down, it gets force fielded halfway. I mean, that's a nice force field, I suppose. If you catch Stats slipping, if he finishes that shade, then sure. That's no bueno. Oh my god, look at the Phoenix. They're like, huh? Units? Okay, we'll kill those. And now Stats comes in from multiple sides. Force fields make some of Stats' units not fight. You need to pull the top units back here, Trigger. You don't want those Immortals to use their DPS on the few units they can hit. But now the Phoenixes come in. All of the Immortals are lifted up, and Stats gets the G to the G. And Trigger loses and gets kicked out of the tournament. Stats will move on and fight for a top 8 spot in the Bellum Gens Elite 2024. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Lots of PvP. All the Protosses are in the lower bracket. Who would have thought? We'll do 2 more lower bracket matches for top 8, and then we move back into the winner bracket, I think. So stay tuned for those. Again, thank you guys for watching. We rate this series a solid 5 out of 8 blue minerals. It's just a good series, but nothing special. Right, like it's I'd mine from there again, but
locked in.
It's not not the greatest series in the world, but still pretty good. If you disagree or agree, let me know in the comments. Be sure you're subscribed, like the video, etc. I hope to see you in the next one. Cheers.